Disaster weddings that should have ended with, I don't. The bride wanted to drive herself to the wedding in an open-topped Porsche. That's a risky game with your hair and makeup. It has been a dream since childhood, and she refused to change her mind. She left her house, followed by her family in a limo. Apparently, the wind whipped her expensively done hair and her veil all over the place, and she lost control of the car. Hold on, I was just worried about her hair. This is a bigger story. Apparently, the wind whipped her expensively done hair and her veil all over the place, and she lost control of the car and ran into the back of a bus. And here I was worried about the hair. The car was not drivable, and she broke her nose, ruining the dress with blood, and broke a hand. The thumb, I think. Oh. I'm glad she's okay though. The wedding was canceled pre-mobile phone, so we sat for almost an hour in the church waiting for news. The reception and honeymoon were canceled. Then it turned out that they didn't buy insurance and had to pay for everything out of pocket. It cost a fortune. The Porsche was covered by her car insurance. Wedding 2 was smaller, much cheaper, and 100% Porsche free. They divorced a couple of years later. That, like 5 years of her life, must have been so expensive. A wedding that cost you a bunch of money that you didn't even have. Luckily, the Porsche was covered. Medical bills maybe, and then you get a divorce. You gotta go through that whole process. The way I would just want to erase that time of my life. Big mistake eraser. 90s kids will get it. Former wedding DJ here. This isn't my story, but one told to me by another female DJ as we were unpacking our gear after our gigs on a Saturday night. Cole's notes, the bride was a wreck the whole day, and the family kept feeding her pills to keep her from bolting. Valium or some such. She was so out of it that after the first dance, she just sat down on the dance floor, leaned over, and fell asleep. Family dragged her to the wall and left her there while they partied. Mother-in-law's speech ended with, "And if you ever lay a hand on her in anger again, I will kill you my damn self." Groom tried to convince the DJ to go party in the parking lot, and when she firmly declined, he went and got a bridesmaid instead. Oh, party in the parking lot. Smash, keyword. She found them going to town, bent over on the hood of a car in the parking lot when she was packing up. I read the first story, didn't know if it was gonna be topped, and here we are. I don't know what the worst part of that story is, to be honest. The drunk bride, the DV, or the groom cheating in the parking lot. I can't even choose. They're all horrific. Brother's wedding in December in the Northwest. They had all the guests show up 2 hours before the ceremony with nowhere to wait with no warning. As in, we did not have access to the church or reception building until the ceremony started. No seats, no protection from the elements, no bathrooms, no food, no drink. People dressed in their absolute best wandered on the lawns in the cold wind for a while before just getting back in their cars to avoid freezing while the wedding party took photos. That's crazy. We watched in our cars in the parking lot as they took photos around the grounds. Eventually, an hour and a half later, someone from the wedding party had to go car to car to tell people they could go into the heated church for the ceremony. Some left instead. The bride's side is from money, so a lot of her guests were pissed beyond reason and spent their time looking for a manager and spreading hate and discontent. Groom's side hunkered down, stayed silent while polite and supportive, and built the foundations of a grudge that will probably never go away. The ceremony and reception were beautiful, but everything was tainted with resentment for being disregarded like that by the couple. Everyone was pissed, but pretending to be happy and polite, considering how much money it obviously all costs. But we just couldn't afford to open the doors to the church that's just sitting there the whole time. Then people got drunk. The energy got dangerous. We left before the fights broke out. It was crazy to learn they spent money to buy a house for their wedding, but didn't consider their guests enough to provide a warm, safe place for their families to wait while they did their own thing. It made everyone feel like a pawn in their wedding game. I couldn't imagine doing that to guests, to strangers, to family and friends, anybody. I think so much about the guests and what makes a good wedding, you know what I mean? I want them to be, well fed, comfortable, They traveled to be there. They're putting their time and money to celebrate your day. I want it to be a good time and comfortable for everybody. I worked this one wedding. It was a dramatic shift, but everyone left, so I got off early and the bride left a big tip to apologize. Ooh, I mean, good for the tip, like for you. I'd rather have worked late and got a smaller tip if it meant she had had the wedding of her dreams. The father of the bride got into quite an aggressive argument with the best man. Best man was brother of the groom because he had hit on his niece who was 17. The best man didn't know she was 17 and was actually only 19 himself, but understood it definitely is not okay as she was still a minor. He was mortified when he found out and was confronted with it. It was awkward, but they agreed it was a misunderstanding and the night went on. A lot of drinks later, they were all on the dance floor. I was collecting glasses, so I happened to be in the center of this. The best man was chatting to the 17-year-old to the side of the dance floor, and I could hear that he was apologizing to her for what had happened earlier. I definitely was not lingering to hear their conversation. Because it was a genuine apology, the following events were completely unnecessary. The father of the bride saw them talking and without hesitation came over and punched the best man square in the face. Upon seeing this, the groom ran over to the father of the bride and punched him back. Oh my God, what a nightmare. This ended up in a full-on brawl between multiple very drunk members of the family. The bride got in between them to break it up and she unfortunately got hit. Oh my God, how does it get worse? And her eyes started to swell. I managed to swoop in and take her off as my manager came running out of the kitchen to break it up. The bride was in tears, her day ruined. The bride, her mother, and stepdad hung around to pay the bar tab and clear their belongings and explained to me that she hadn't wanted to invite her dad. He always causes problems and is very aggressive and argumentative, and she knew he would somehow ruin her day, but she invited him to save the drama before the wedding. She also explained that her husband punching him wasn't just because he hit her brother, but was from years of him having to sit back and see her deal with this behavior. Ooh, you mix a bunch of anger with alcohol. The dad was ruining her day just like she thought he would and then managed to assault his brother. The police were called, but nobody pressed charges, unfortunately. I'd love to know where they are now. I hope they manage to have a very happy life together. Yeah. Anyone holding like that resentment and anger just builds, and you add some alcohol in the mix to some already angry people. Take cover. There's no controlling that. They're in their own world in their mind. A scary world. Hello? Dude, you could have let me know I had a heart attack. You literally scared the absolute shit out of me. It was like a and I didn't see anyone, so I thought it was a ghost. I was like, this is it. I did a haunted video the other day and this is, it's come to get me.
Filming, so I stopped. I didn't want
Hello, Matthew, say hello to everyone.
Hello.
Guys, I almost shit my pants. This was at a wedding reception. There was a swingers group that would host parties at a bar inside a hotel. Well, the hotel also booked a wedding reception for the same night as the swingers party. What an interesting mix that would be. Well, the groom ended up hooking up with an older lady there and was caught leaving her room. Groom was slapped and punched. The bride was raging, crying and screaming, rightfully so. Groomsmen had zero idea what to do and were similarly plastered. Got it. What a mess. Groom was fairly drunk and got a bloody nose after she punched him in the face a few times. Both families were screaming at each other and bridesmaids were being held back by staff and other family members. They looked more than ready to rip the guy apart. Cops got called and everyone was kicked out. That night was the talk of the town and the group for a while. The hotel made sure not to book receptions and swingers on the same night from now on. Well, see, you should be able to have swingers around and still, remain faithful on your wedding day. The swingers was not the problem. The husband-to-be was. Hate to break it to you. I might have missed hydration station when I thought a ghost was coming to take over my body. So grab your beverage of choice. It's lemon water in my cup. Cheers. Cheers, Matt, from the other room. My friend's wife thought it would be great if guests had to pay an entrance fee ticket for their wedding. What is this, a club and I have to pay cover to get in? It wasn't cheap either. Absolutely not. Her reason is that people spend that much for concerts. Why shouldn't people spend it on seeing two rock stars getting wed? I paid the price for my friend though, LOL. Had to bring a gift as well. The entrance fee was paid in advance because the wedding had limited seating. Good thing my friend was loved by everyone because I did not see a single friend from the bride except for family. Her bridesmaids were her sisters. Context, they had a love for music and they didn't hire wedding singers for the reception. So basically it was a wedding/concert because the newlywed put out a performance for us. The ticket was, pardon? The ticket was like $100 for a country where the ticket was like $100 for a country where $150 was the minimum monthly wage. For the record, they sent out the invitation for like 10 months or a year in advance, so people had plenty of time to scrounge up for the ticket. Good voices though. Still shitty because it was like being forced to pay for a 30-minute concert that I didn't want to go to. Love my friend to death, so it was great to hear him sing, and I don't regret even going for a second. You're a better friend than Maya because that's wild. I would have to be so brutally honest with my friends if they told me this is what's going on and we're charging an entrance fee. Nah, we need to have a chat. We need to sit down and have a talk. Absolutely not. Are you guys going to that? Like, be so honest, your best friend. Are you going to that? Are you just shutting up and paying that? Or are you having like an honest conversation and being like, so, what the fuck is this? Let me know. Maybe you're a better friend than I am. I used to photograph weddings. I bet photographers see so much stuff go down on wedding days because they're in all the behind the scenes. This one took the cake. The bride was doing shots at 8 a.m. in the bridal suite getting ready. She then has the maid of honor call one of the guys to make sure they get plastic bottles of vodka, not glass. Priorities. They were riding on motorcycles and she didn't want to take the chance of the bottles breaking if they fell off. The guy she was marrying, she knew for only about 2 months. He had 4 different kids by 4 different women. How do I know this? He has all of their names tattooed on his arm. Nothing is crossed out, just their names in a row. Like quite literally just a list of all the women you've been with. She told me the significance and then bragged that she would be the 5th on his arm. Couldn't be me. The reception was an absolute crap show. They passed through a Harley dealership and were an hour late to the reception from the ceremony. A drunken squad of bikers with brides and bridesmaids on the back of their bikes. One guy hit a car in the parking lot because he was so blitzed. By the end of the night, the bride was passed out on a table while the groom was doing shots with other ladies at the reception. Took great photos for them. I don't have the photos anymore. This was back in 2006. Oh, what I would do to see those. I do remember my favorite being the bride and groom both drinking mini shots. For some reason, she was kneeling in front of him and he was gripping her head while they both did the shots. Honestly, I would probably pay some money, like just a little bit of money to see those photos, to buy access to them, to put them in this video. But I'm so sorry, I do not have that for you guys today. I was at a wedding as a groomsman for a childhood friend of mine this past summer. There were 10 groomsmen and 10 bridesmaids, and you could tell that everyone involved had no experience managing such a large party of people. Coupled with the fact that half the bridal party had children with them, oh my, that they had to wrangle and take care of, and the rehearsal / pre-wedding orders of business took forever. I can't imagine how crazy and busy that day would be with children involved. The wedding itself, it was a church wedding, which isn't bad and of itself, but this wedding was the day after the Roe v. Wade was struck down by the Supreme Court. So of course, the minister made a homily about that during a wedding. Probably not a good idea. The church had no AC in peak summer heat, so everyone was sweltering. With how long it took for the bridal party to get ready, there was no time for anyone to stop at a gas station on the way to grab water or anything. And there wasn't any at the church for guests to, oh my. And there wasn't any at the church for guests in the form of a water fountain. I would faint. After communion was given out, the groom went around to every single guest in attendance, all 180, and shook their hand / hugged them and talked to them for a few seconds. Everyone just had to watch him do that for like 20 minutes. After the wedding was over, we had to run over to the reception venue to help set up and get photos out on the golf course. The spot we were going to take photos was on the other end of the event site, and with golf carts only seating 2 people and 3 golf carts given to our bridal party, we had to drop people off one at a time by this bridge. Oh my. What's that noise? The ghost. It's that ghost, I'm telling you. I did that video and now there's a demon in my house. Once all 27 of us were there, 24 in the wedding, plus 2 ring bearers and a flower girl, not to mention everyone's kids, the photographer informed us that the sunlight was too bright for that location. And we had to go back to the reception hall to get photos there. Yeah, I'd probably just leave. The old Irish goodbye. Keep in mind, those who'd gotten to the original photo spot first had been standing in the direct sunlight with no shade available and in full 3-piece suits for about 40 minutes, with again, no water being made available to us throughout the day. So we repeat the whole process again, and by the time everyone is at the new photo spot, which is right by the reception hall, so this whole charade was effing pointless, 2 bridesmaids had passed out from the heat exhaustion. I'm telling you guys, with my fainting, I would pass out. We take care of them and rush through photos because of course there's not enough time to get them all done now. Oh, and this new photo spot was also in the middle of the 18th hole, so we're also dodging multiple golf balls and dealing with angry golfers. What chaos. A few of us tried to get the party to move, but we were shot down. At this point, it's about 5 p.m. and the original plan was to go off-site to grab something to eat or drink before dinner was served at 8. Because again, nothing's been available to eat or drink all day by this point. That should be illegal. That's when the bridal party is informed that they have to be back on site by 5:30 to wait and make their grand entrance when the reception starts at 6:30. This wasn't in the original itinerary, so we're stuck there waiting behind the reception hall for an hour in the sunlight once again for people to start showing up. So we make our venue entrance once the other guests have been seated, dinner eventually gets served, and on a positive note, the food was actually great. We're all chugging down waters like we've just crossed the oh my god. I don't even know how to say that. What kind of fucking desert is that? Hold on, let me crank this up for you guys.
Mojave.
Mojave. I'm learning. We're all chugging down waters like we've just crossed the Mojave Desert and we have been eating nothing but sand for 2 weeks. The bartenders can't bring us pictures of waters fast enough. At around 8:30, one of the groomsmen, we'll call him Ian, suddenly becomes super sullen and isn't talking to anybody. I've since heard afterwards that this may have been due to beef with another groomsman. But at 9 p.m., once it's almost fully dark, the best man comes up to me and tells me that Ian disappeared into the woods behind the golf course. Pardon? The wedding party has now come to a halt as half of us are scouring the woods, drunk and in the dark, looking for this guy with the oh no. Looking for this guy with the history of self-harm and suicidal ideation. Here I was thinking it was just a drunk guy going on an adventure. We find him and he's safe, but the mood of the wedding reception has been, oh my god, irreparably soured after this. Things mostly proceed as normal after that. The lead bartender, who I've been chatting with on and off throughout the night, has provided great service all night. At around 11:30, right before the last call for drinks, I thank her for dealing with such an insane wedding party and for all the rowdier guests. Her response verbatim: "Oh, you guys are no problem at all. It's when I have to serve the help that I start to lose my mind." As she said this, she nodded towards a group of black wedding guests behind me, including the father of the bride. By far the worst wedding I've ever been to or in. I really felt like we were there with all those details, to be honest. We just heard the entire itinerary of that wedding day, which sounded horrible. I've been to a few weddings in the summertime, outside in the heat, and I go prepared. I bring my own water. I brought a fan to all the weddings. I brought peppermint oil because if you put it on your forehead or the back of your neck and the wind hits it, it cools down your body. I have all the tricks because I would be the bridesmaids that fainted. That would be me. Friends of ours were set on a destination wedding, so insisted they were gonna have a non-wedding wedding for paperwork reasons. Figured they would do that with a couple of witnesses, but no. Invited, by 100 or so people, the ceremony was pretty great, all bells and whistles you would expect of a wedding. The crap show was after. And it wasn't the real wedding. We had been invited for a glass of fizz and a canopy in a backyard with the intention it was for an hour or two. Naturally, everyone hasn't seen each other in ages, as they had invited people from all over the country, so this turns into a drunken mess quite fast. What little food there was got zoomed up in seconds. Everyone was pretty much hammered and going to get more booze. I offered to order a bunch of pizza, but was told no, it wasn't the real wedding and people would go home soon. 10 hours later, it's a lot of drunk people, and then the groom got a bunch of substances, we'll say, delivered, upsetting the bride, who went off on one and spent the rest of the night crying. Maid of honor was messed up and throwing up everywhere. Another person asked awkward questions about the necessity of a destination wedding after the day's events, which made an argument between other guests and the groom's parents. People went home that night stopping off at McDonald's, and no one had booked the next day off work because they were told it wasn't a party. So dealing with work the next day was not so great. Spoiler alert, only a handful of people did the destination wedding, which has led me and a dozen others not seeing the couple anymore. They had a huge engagement party before this non-wedding too, and I just got done with the whole thing, as did others who had spent a lot of time off and money on them already. That's too much. You're doing too much. Way too much. Doing too much substances and drinking, it sounds like. A friend of mine's first wedding, I was friends with both bride and groom. From what we'd seen over the 2 years that they'd been together, their relationship was fun and happy. She's super sweet and just the most genuine nice girl. A bit sheltered, but fierce and ready to make the most of life. He was quite funny and chill, could be moody at times, but he would bounce back quickly and was smart and fun to talk to. We're all a bunch of nerds, so we met through extracurricular competitions held between our schools. They started with a very formal religious ceremony that took forever. When we got to the reception, my friend was still too young to drink, and while she seemed happy, I could tell something was off. The groom was very cold and indifferent to everyone. We found this odd as we'd all been friends since grade school, and it wasn't normal for him. Bride was still only 20, so too young to drink, but the groom was 22, so it wasn't a dry reception, thankfully. Damn, that is so young to get married. And it's not a bad thing, I'm just saying, from a 32-year-old who's not, I can't imagine being 20 and getting married. I left right after they dipped out of the reception for their honeymoon. I didn't hear from her for 6 months. This sounds like a very odd wedding. Groom had, here we go. When she came back, she told me they had got divorced a month later. Groom had been sleeping with the maid of honor for months because my friend had wanted to save herself. Oh my God. He confessed this on their honeymoon after they consummated by handing her his phone with texts from the maid of honor while he went to shower. Nobody talks to the groom anymore, myself included. Honestly, I'm not even sure he still lives here. Happy ending though, she met a wonderful man about a year later. They had been married, they got married girl, just don't wait for anything. They have been married for like 6 years now, and their wedding was a blast. Best one I ever attended, hands down, and I despise weddings just in general. You know what? I'm happy she got a happy ending. You know what? Maybe she moves fast in relationships. She likes to get married soon into it. No judgment here. Not my life. She got the happy ending. That's what matters most. My brother's first wedding. We turned up to the registry office suited and booted, but no bride or groom in sight. Running a little late, everyone took their seats. Bride's family took up the front 7 rows, smartish casually, leaving the back 2 for the groom's family. We paid for everything, $5,000 all in. The registry office pulls me aside and starts asking for the payment before they can start. Confused, I called my brother for the 10th time. He answers, asking if we have paid yet, as they gave the money to mother-in-law, who is a raging alcoholic, and she drank it all. I pay the fee and whatnot so my mom can watch her firstborn sacrifice himself to his new bride, and wedding continues as planned. Me standing in the doorway during the photos, he pulls me aside and asks me to pay the venue as well. Another 700 pounds with drinks. I did, and paid by card over the phone, but due to space was told by the wedding party, I wasn't able to attend, as it was at capacity. The only groom's family was best man plus one and parents over my dead body. When they arrived, there were no decorations and the catering was a finger buffet totaling 100 pounds, and that's generous apparently. My parents were fuming, thinking what they spent $5,000 on, knowing what had just happened. 5 days later, there's a charge on my card for 1,500 pounds from drinks. The mother-in-law promised an open bar. My brother was stupid to tell them no. Over my dead body, am I standing out there and you're telling me that the capacity's full and I'm not allowed in when I've freaking paid for it? You're out of your mind. I'm crawling through a window. I'm slipping through the back door. Not a chance. Went to a wedding that my wife and I said will not last more than 2 years. The wedding was in the backyard of the bride's house. They had all the chairs and wedding ark set up outside. They set up a plastic tarp running down the aisle to walk on. Just before the wedding starts, there are darkening clouds appearing. Should have been a sign to move the wedding inside, but they invited too many people to the damn thing. Just as they start the wedding, it begins to rain lightly. The father of the bride is walking the bride down the lane and slips on the wet tarp and falls on his ass. No. Bride is now at the front, raining harder. People start to cover up with whatever they have. Some people start to get up too. Bride turns around and says to all, "This is my wedding. No one is going to ruin it. You better all effing sit your asses down." We all sit back down and the wedding resumes. Hey, don't they say that rain on your wedding day is good luck? Or is that a myth? It is now raining pretty well. The grass is now turning into mud. A few ladies in the crowd and the bridesmaids' makeup are now running down their faces. My wife has taken my jacket as a cover from the rain. They finish the vows and kiss, and then everyone runs to the house and garage to get out of the rain. Oh, remember how I said the grass was now mud? Yeah, lots of people slipped and fell in the mud on the way to the house. We got to the house. Many people looked terrible from running, makeup, muddy clothing, and soaking wet. A few of the women had to cover their chests and waists due to the wet clothing becoming see-through. Most of the men were loaning their coats to the ladies to cover up. We love that. What gentlemen they were. Dirty looks all around. The wedding cake was outside and now brought in. The rain made the decorations on the cake turn all runny and it looks horrible. The bride and groom began to cut the cake and feed each other. They smashed the cake pieces into each other's faces, then began a food fight with each other. My friend's wife got hit in the face with purple icing cake on her face and dress. The priest got hit with yellow icing on his white robe. There was nothing left of the cake to even serve. Food being served was still frozen in the middle of the food, and the stuff that was not frozen was burned. This is like just horrific. The dessert was supposed to be the cake, but as said above, there was nothing left. There was a goodie bag that people got on the way out. It had a lollipop, a coupon for an ice cream cone at McDonald's, a pencil with the bride and groom's name on it, and Halloween-sized M&Ms. My wife, whose dress was filthy, her makeup was out of whack, and her hair was a mess, said to me that she does not want to see those people again for 6 months. She was so mad. The couple divorced 11 months later when the groom came home from work and found his wife getting double teamed by 2 guys. What an ending to this story. I really just thought we were just gonna hear about the really crappy wedding. Talk about a climax to the story. I didn't even need to make that joke. I did not even mean to make that pun intended. But hey, if it fits. I went to this wedding recently. Terrible. The groom, basically my cousin, we aren't technically related, but see each other as family, immediately got drunk/high and became very touchy with me, ew, and made comments like, "You really grew into your body, huh?" while wrapping his arm around my waist. That's disturbing. Made me extremely uncomfortable knowing the fact he's in his late 20s. I'm still a teenager, and he met me when I was a baby. He just got married and he already had a kid. That's creepy. Also, everyone there thought I was 21 plus and kept offering me drinks and weed, which usually I'm like, F it, but I'm not gonna do it at a wedding with my entire family there. Also, I have frontal lobe seizure disorder. They all knew this, but proceeded to add constant flashing lights added with flashing light sunglasses into the mix, which number 1, gave me a severe headache, number 2, made me extremely lightheaded and dizzy, and 3, almost caused me to violently throw up and fall to the ground several times. Just messed up in general. At least the ceremony was beautiful. Yeah, I don't even know if you should have stayed there with your health condition, to be honest. They gotta put a warning out there for those kind of lights, because that can very much affect someone who struggles with seizures. The rest of the story was just creepy and disturbing. As a wedding DJ, I've been to a lot of weddings, over 300 at least. The very worst I've ever been a part of, the bride found out at the reception that the groom took his ex-girlfriend to New Orleans for his bachelor party. I didn't find this out until the end. The mother called the next day asking for a receipt. I'm pretty sure she took the groom to court to repay for the wedding expenses, as he should. Second worst was the one where the mother of the bride died. No, a month before the wedding. The entire wedding was more of a wake than a wedding. Everyone was crying and kept trying to talk to me about the lady and tell me stories about her, etc. There have been a lot more with some bad parts to them or bad situations, but those two were the worst. Both are awful in very different ways. Wedding was in a local theater. Ooh, think it's a small theater for plays. The groom was heavily involved there, so the whole wedding was theater, play, movie themed. Oh, I love that. Invites were made to look like tickets. Very creative until the actual wedding. My wife and I took the day off work and drove in crappy weather to get to the wedding and sit in the theater. The wedding was the premiere of their wedding, and we proceeded to watch the movie of their wedding ceremony. The whole thing was shot on some shitty phone camera, and the sound was horrible, so you couldn't tell what was being said. At the end of a probably 5 to 7 minute long cringe video, the lights came back up, projector screen went up, and the cast, the wedding party, came out from the sides of the stage and bowed, then walked up the aisle. Oh God, wedding over. We saw the wedding party in person for a total of maybe 30 seconds. My sister, one of the bridesmaids, flew halfway across the country and paid for her bridesmaid dress and shoes for this. It was the most awkward, confusing, and frustrating wedding ever. Yeah, I take back everything I said in the beginning where I was really pumped for this wedding. I liked the idea if it was just actually a wedding, but I would be furious as a guest and a bridesmaid. How did friends and family not convince them that this was a terrible idea? That's it. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy. I'll see you tomorrow.